Hi, welcome. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the September 12th, 2024 meeting of the Columbia Association Board of Directors. It's been about 6 weeks since we last met, so if I fumble through some of this, my apologies in advance. First thing we need to do is call to order. Few housekeeping items. First thing, if you have a cell phone personal device, please either put it on vibrate or at best power it down. We want to be able to make sure that if anybody else is speaking tonight, everybody can be heard. We don't want to have any beeps or rings stepping on anybody's testimony. Second, this meeting is hey, Sky. This meeting is a hybrid meeting. We're meeting here in person in the Columbia Association boardroom, and we also have an online segment here. We have at least 2 board members online, and we have some residents, I believe, who will be speaking from online. This meeting will be recorded. It's live streamed, and you'll be able to view it on YouTube at a later date. From there, then we'll go on. Roll call. Let's get started here. Colin.
Here.
Reg. Reg is not here. Karen.
She's online.
She hasn't promoted.
Oh, there we go.
We can see Karen and she's still muted. We'll come back around. Mike.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Myself. Ashley. We can see her online. And Chris. Do we know?
I think Chris, he's going to be late.
Okay,
yes.
Chris will be late. Okay, so Reg, not, and Chris late.
Can I come to?
I'm sorry, Sky?
Thank you.
See, I knew that I would mess up. I apologize. Sky, are you here?
Do it at the beginning and get it over.
All right, Sky? Yes, okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, can you hold on just 1 second? We're just trying to get sound.
Yeah, let's take just a 2-minute recess here. Everybody just cool your heels. I'll try and make this mouth work a little better. One was held Monday, August 12th, 2024. That was the CA Architectural Resource Committee. Members present were Deb Bach, Carolyn Payton, Eileen McNamara, Lexi Milani, and Carl McKinney. Others present were Susan Sloan, Eva Lambright, and Debbie Nix. The vote to close the meeting was 5-0-0, and it was closed in accordance with HOA Section 11B1, 11-4IV. All right. The Columbia Association Audit Committee held a meeting on August 28th And members present, Jim Young, Tim Redmond, Reg Avery, Karen Emery, and Paul Rader. The vote to close was 5-0-0. That was closed in accordance with HOA Act 11B 3-4I and 3-4IV. All right, those are the closed meetings. Thanks for letting me get that business done with. Moving on, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mike moves. Second?
I'll second.
All right, who did that? Somebody tell me.
We'll say Paul.
We'll say Paul. Okay, thank you, those guys. Thank you very much. So that's Mike and Sky. I'm sorry, Paul. All right, discussion. Any discussion of the agenda? All those in favor of approving the agenda? All right, well, I'll give it a call here. So, Ashley,
Yep, approved.
Sky,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Colin,
Yes.
and I say yes. All right, so that is 3, 6, 8, 0, 0. Moving on, Columbia update. Sean?
Yes, we have some great videos for the board tonight. The first is something that's going to be a large part of the board's work coming up, which is the FY26 budget survey video. As you know, the first of 3 surveys is set to close tomorrow. We will probably extend that through the weekend to reach a few more people. You'll see a memo summarizing the results in your next packet. The survey was pushed out to literally tens of thousands of our e-newsletter recipients and has reached more than 22,000 additional people on social media, so it's great outreach. We've also pushed it through our internal team members, and the villages have been kind enough to share it with their email list as well. To date, we have more than 200 responses, and our communications team is working to position the survey as a way to have a voice in the community for everybody. So here's our first video you may have seen. It's great.
Hey, I want to talk to you about something. Columbia Association's budget process. Wait, I'll be quick and you can make a difference. You may not realize it, but CA's investments impact a lot around Columbia. And whether you're someone who lives, works, walks, plays, swims, or anything else in this community, this whole budget thing touches all of us in some way. CA wants to hear from everyone, and there's all sorts of ways to give your input. So visit columbiaassociation.org/budget to find out all the ways you can get involved. And the sooner you do, the more impact you can have. Well, what are you waiting for? Time to head to columbiaassociation.org/budget and share what matters most to you.
All right. Next is along the lines of capital, and a big part of what CA does this year, year in and year out, is champion connectivity across our community. We recently shared a video of featuring Stephen Boswell of our capital improvements team walking through CA's approach to bridge replacements. By the end of this month, the team will replace 12 bridges across the pathways. And these bridges are really interesting. They're fiberglass bridges and not the old pressure-treated wood. So very exciting, better for the long term, better for the environment, and better all around. So here's our next video.
1 second, I need to check the matrix because K wanted that one, the YouTube's not getting it.
Ah,
So give me 1 moment.
checking the Matrix, huh? Wow, just like the movie.
Sorry.
Well, anyway, while they're preparing that, I did have the opportunity to go out with Jeremy's crew and see them constructing these fiberglass bridges, and they construct them on site. It's actually pretty interesting. They come in pieces. The flooring is non-slip, and it lasts for the life of the bridge. And also, if there's any issues with the bridge that's all piecemeal, they can deconstruct the bridge when they have to and reconstruct it. So, very interesting new technology. Just shows how progressive Jeremy and his crew are when they look at projects like this.
The bridges are a key component within our pathway system. We do an annual safety inspection. They go through all the structural components of the bridge. The inspection drives the whole entire replacement list. The Columbia Association's in-house crew just completed the installation of this FRP bridge. These bridges actually have a life expectancy of 40 years compared to a wood bridge, which is 10 to 20 years. Some of the features we have on this bridge compared to a wood bridge is the fiberglass decking. It actually has a non-slip surface and also has slots in it which provide additional drainage. Also, safety rails here. Smaller gap at the bottom so someone's foot doesn't slide in here. Stroller wheels, things like that, and then they're spaced accordingly coming up. Additional is this top rail, top cap, has a UV protectant on top of it to protect these flat surfaces from the sun. Our in-house crews install these. Takes about a week for installation to complete. They actually build them on site. Once we have the bridge ordered and we have the correct length, sometimes we do some pathway adjustments to align it better for maintenance and the public usage. Start demo of the old bridge and then start the assembly of the FRP bridge from there. The main benefit of the fiberglass bridge is the longevity, the 40-year lifespan of a bridge compared to 10 or 20 years for a wooden bridge. We're not traveling back and forth replacing as much. We can come in, install an FRP bridge, complete in a week, less emissions, less traveling, less product, less time.
Yeah, that's great. The next two video clips are part of our Change in Columbia series. Some of you were able to make it out to our recent event for the speaker series. The latest conversation featured first and second generation immigrants who were generous enough to speak openly about their experience moving to and choosing Columbia. The panel included Howard County Public Schools employee Brandy Lemus, Wild Lake Village Board member Condi Smith, and our very own Assistant Director of Community Programs and Services, Anish Manrai. Here's a couple of those video clips.
It's all about building and fostering relationships. And so that is kind of what makes Columbia Columbia as well. And that is what makes it a special place. And, we have been here 11 years now. And the way this community continues to transform, change is the only constant in our, it's very important to keep embracing that change and kind of keep moving forward because it's a very fun and unique journey.
You just feel like you belong. Challenges are there, was there, still is, but you still feel the sense of community.
Everyone has something to bring to the table, no matter where they're from or, where they are in their journey. It's always about, I want everyone to remember that sense of community and, helping each other.
All right. Our last video is related to the Prepare for Success program. Kids are back in school, and CA was there to celebrate in the final days of summer. Our team attended multiple back-to-school events to share information about the CA Points program and hosted a teacher appreciation night at the lakefront. One of the most impactful things we do every year is our participation in the Prepare for Success school supply drive. We've had collection bins in our facilities and village centers for decades, but this was my first experience in this incredible effort. And I believe you'll hear from one of the organizers, Roy Appletree, during this resident speak out, but we wanted to share this video as well.
Prepare for Success is a program supplying school supplies and backpacks to students who are on free or reduced meals. We solicit donations from individuals, corporations, and we're preparing students for success in school and further on in their life.
It's certainly a growth in need in terms of the number of students, and it's a growth in response from the community. The Columbia Association and the villages have been there from the beginning.
Everybody knows CA when you say it. And they say, well, I have supplies. What do I do with it? Go to a CA facility.
CA does the advertising, the pickup, collecting supplies.
It's inspiring to be here, to see the amount of people that donate to this worthy cause. This sets kids up for success so they can be better educated and be better contributors to the community.
Partnerships are critical for Prepare for Success because since it's an all volunteer activity, it takes major organizations like CA to help make that support and create that structure.
All of you, I'm sure, remember opening up your own, special pencils and your binders, and you could write your name on them, and you went in with your brand new backpack. And just think about that feeling, and that's what these children deserve.
Really being present in the community and supporting great initiatives like this, that's what it means to be part of CA and part of Columbia.
All good?
Yeah, all set.
All right, thanks, Sean. Thanks for bringing the events and happenings out there in the community here to the boardroom. I do appreciate it. Thank you. All right, resident speak out. Here we go. First up, a couple of ground rules. Speaking as an individual, folks get 3 minutes, and speaking for a group, folks get 5 minutes. We're going to start off with Nina. Is Nina online? Nina Agrawal.
Hi, can everyone hear me and or see me?
There you are. Yes, we can see you. Welcome.
Okay, hi, I'm Nana. Nana is like Dana. And my husband, Ben, who is camera shy, but I'm going to make him be there. Okay. We just moved here to Clarksville about a year ago, and at a time when it was very eye-opening to buy houses. It's our first time buying a home, and as you can imagine. And the good news is Clarksville is a very competitive place to buy. The eye-opening news was one of the factors that really played into whether or not we were going to buy was what's included in our homeowners association fees and the fact that a gym was not available. So that was a really rare thing for us to not have a gym available or available at low cost or free as part of being involved in the community and part of our association fee. So we just wanted to share that because in the interest of good health and an opportunity to have access to places to work out that are convenient and may be considered to be included with our association fee, we would be very, very interested in trying to move the needle on that.
All right. Thank you, Nana. My apologies for mispronouncing your name. I will do much better next time. Sorry about that. If you have just a moment, I'm going to ask if any board members have any questions for you. Do we have any questions? All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your input tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks. Next up would be Kat Wee. Kat? Good evening.
Pretty much the same stuff that she's saying. I was looking at your FY24 budget. It looks like about 58.6% of CA's budget is from our annual charge. And what do we get for it? Everything's extra, as she said, which means that right now 28%, and I have that right here on this piece of paper, of 28.3% of people actually use something other than, just living here and walking down the paths, if you can get to the paths, because they're not ADA accessible in many areas. There's not even handicap parking for those people. Wild Lake is a big example of that. That's where I live. We are losing, bleeding money from the golf courses. And I'm told by our neighbor down on 10 Mills Road, I don't think you've talked to him, Bill, but he said he can't get a tea time. It's so many people from outside of Columbia. They're willing to pay. They said it's actually cheaper from where they live. And so he can't get a tea time. The guy further down on 10 Mills Road, which he also has never met you, has the flooding going on near his property. And so when that happens at that Fairway Hills golf course, people just roll over in the golf course over his lawn. So he's got a lot of damage. That happens. So I want to know, how do we make this solvent? We're losing like $1 million at Hobbits Glen. We're losing hundreds of thousands at Fairway Hills. Some of the sports clubs aren't well attended. There's a few that are. We're losing tons of money. And I know it's not a profit. We're not supposed to be running at a profit, but why are we losing so much? And yet the residents aren't even using it. I don't go to any of the clubs. It's extra. Everything's extra. Summer pools, extra. We get literally nothing for our money, our annual charge. So people who say, I'm moving to Ellicott City because it's better, they might as well, because you're going to pay extra for the gym. If you want to use that, you're going to pay extra for your family to use that outdoor bowl. Working families just can't afford it. You guys need to do better. Either figure out how to give us something free, like maybe using the gym or the pools, and then figure out if these other things aren't worth keeping because they're just losing tons of money. Thank you.
Sorry, do we have any questions for Kat? Anybody? All right. No, thank you. Thanks for your input tonight. Next up, Susan Tucker.
Good evening. My name is Susan Tucker, and I'm here to introduce Wildlife Cares to the new Columbia Association President and CEO, Sean McInnes, and to members of the board who may not have been aware of the ongoing productive partnership between environmental volunteers and CA staff. Wildlife Cares is a grassroots all-volunteer group founded in 2015 to promote education and stewardship on environmental issues within the village of Walled Lake. For the last 9 years, Wildlife Cares has actively participated in the stewardship of timely and effective landscape, lake, stormwater, and CA open space management, while raising community awareness of key environmental issues. We are also a standing committee of the Walled Lake Village Board, and to save time tonight, I brought a brochure outlining our mission and activities. I'll hand them out after. I want to thank all the CA staff, especially those in the Sustainability Office. They listen to our concerns and work with us to support our efforts. We are especially thankful for leadership in starting and maintaining the Weed Warrior and the Adopt a Spot programs, and are very grateful that CA hired an invasive plant specialist to help us in our efforts to deal with invasive vines, shrubs, and plants. We're also very appreciative of staff who work in CA open space. They work hard to keep the space safe and beautiful for area residents. One example of their work is the native meadow that CA staff planted in collaboration with our volunteers along the outflow of Walled Lake. It got lots of positive attention in the first year, and it still has areas that are beautiful, but to continue to reflect well on Columbia, it does need mowing once a year to stop the growth of shrubs and trees, and we are interested in joining CA staff in a concerted effort to remove some of the highly invasive plants within the meadow. I am especially proud of the work Wildlife Cares did in reviewing the Wildlife Homeowner Guidelines, the RAC guidelines, and recommending specific changes that supported environmentally friendly landscaping practices. These changes were approved by our village board, and they show that Wildlife's commitment to encouraging environmental excellence and promoting low-impact, ecologically sound landscaping. For the good of the community, people, and environment, we would appreciate CA's support on a number of issues, and I'll list them quickly. One is advocating that Howard County plant native street trees in Columbia. Howard County continues to plant non-native street trees like ginkgos and zelkovas, neither of which support local wildlife. Helping CA staff and contractors move away quickly from fossil fueled equipment to using battery charged equipment, especially leaf blowers, Please note that Montgomery County has already passed legislation to address the environmental, noise, and health concerns related to gas-powered leaf blowers. It would be great if CA could encourage Howard County to consider similar legislation. Working with Howard County to increase funding under the Cleanscapes program for homeowner access to conservation landscaping and rain gardens. We did used to have a grant, but it ran out, and the number of approvals within the Cleanscape programs now is only 70 a year for all of Howard County. Developing a deer management plan for Columbia to help preserve our forested open space areas. And finally, encouraging other CA villages to implement the environmentally friendly landscaping practices that we have already implemented in Walled Lake. I'd like to thank you very much for your past, present, and future support of an environmentally healthy and sustainable Columbia. And I have our brochure and a handout. And if you all would like a copy of the environmentally friendly landscaping standards that you could share, this is for the board members, with your villages to encourage them to also make changes in your RAC guidelines, I can send them to you.
All right, Susan, thank you very much. If you just hold up, I want to see if anybody has a question for you. Paul.
No question. Thanks for coming out, Susan. So how can people in Walled Lake get involved? How can they contact you to get involved if they want to? How can people contact you to get involved in the community? Just Walled Lake.
Oh, in Walled Lake, we have a kind of an informal group, and we have a lot of different activities. We have 4 adopted spots. We have different projects, but I'm not sure how many. Yeah. I think we have, 250 or something on our email.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So what, if you just share if you don't mind sharing the email address that people can reach out to that are listening if they want to get more involved.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
Most people get involved in Walled Lake through the Community Association webpage, wildlake.org, and easily contact the village manager from there, and we can do that. Okay. So, good question, Paul. Thanks. I believe Ashley also had a question. Susan, you're popular tonight. Sorry. Ashley, please go ahead.
Hi, Susan. Yeah, thanks for your testimony. I was hoping, one, that you could email your testimony to the board, and then also I was wondering, do the CARES group have any interaction with Howard County? Are you advocating for the same things that you suggested to the CA board and are hoping for our advocacy? What's your interaction with Howard County?
So the different CARES groups do provide input to different activities in Howard County. So a bunch of us testified about the new park they're developing in Western Howard County. We have testified on the street trees a number of times, but haven't been successful. So we're hoping to get some help. They're changing their landscaping guidelines, and they were written originally in '98, and we're going to be looking at that. I'm sure people will be very interested. And a lot of us are involved in projects a lot of us are master gardeners, watershed stewards, master naturalists, weed warriors, et cetera, and we're involved in a lot of projects that involve people all throughout Howard County, doing home consults and things with people throughout the county.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Mm-hmm. Oh, Sky, wait, we got one more.
Yeah, I don't know how to phrase this as a question, but I want to thank you for everything you've said tonight. This is the type of information, the type of orientation that I think the board could be very happy to hear more of. It's a good, we can compare what CARES in your village does to what other organizations in our village do, and start to work together. So thank you for coming. And I don't know how to phrase that as a question.
I think we'll just count it that you tried. So
there's going to be 2 more CARES groups testifying tonight, and I understand some more will come to future meetings.
Thanks again. Okay. Speaking of Kate Riley, Kate is up next. Speaking for the King's Contrivance CARES.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Riley, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Casey Cares, the Village Environmental Group for King's Contrivance. With new board members and a new president, I'd like to introduce Casey Cares, who we are, what we do, and what we hope for from you all. Our group formed 3 years ago, and in that time, we've come to include over 400 residents who are signed up for our weekly local environmental newsletter. We have a committed group of 12 that plan and carry out our environmental events. We have 24 weed warriors organized in our neighborhood, 14 adopt-a-spots that we've helped initiate, and we've given away many hundreds of native trees, shrubs, and perennials to our residents in our spring and fall giveaways. Casey Cares also successfully led the campaign for the expansion of the Green Bin program last year to almost 8,000 additional homes in our county. We've applied for and received multiple grants from the Maryland DNA Forestry Service and the Chesapeake Bay Trust to plant native trees and to replace invasive landscaping shrubs with native shrubs. We coordinate and work with both Howard County and Columbia Association, both of whom have supported us with financial and other resources. Thanks to CA, to the county, and to Maryland State, this fall alone, we'll be giving away another 150 native perennials into King's Contrivance residents, and we'll be planting 150 more native trees into our neighborhood CA open space. We are incredibly grateful to CA's Sustainability Division for the support that they've given us in our 3 years of activity, particularly John McCoy, Natalie Yee, and Eric Walker, and Jeremy. But there's so much to be done, and we are also here to ask that the CA Board of Directors make some decisions that will improve our environment in Columbia as a whole. First, and this one is already underway, Columbia Association continues to use gas-powered lawn equipment on most of CA property, with engines that produce a vast amount of air and noise pollution. These gas engines are not regulated, and they spew toxins and noise at levels that harm the health of our workers and destroy the peace in the air of our neighborhoods. We ask that CA speed the shift to electric lawn care equipment. Second, and this one is easy, Howard County continues to plant non-native and emerging invasive trees along Columbia streets and parks. While these trees provide shade and they sequester carbon, they add little to our support of insect and bird life. And when these trees spread invasively into our open spaces, and they do, they are actively harming our environment. We ask that CA request that Howard County plant only native trees along our streets and on any county property within Columbia. Third, and this is the hard one, Columbia is overrun with deer. We have 10 times the carrying capacity of our natural areas. The overabundant deer cause automobile accidents, spread Lyme disease, and discourage homeowners from gardening. Most importantly, though, deer are preventing our aging woodlands from regenerating. Deer eat everything in the understory, including almost all of the saplings, before they can mature and replace our thinning tree canopy. Every tree that we plant as volunteers needs to be protected from deer, which can't be done on the scale that needs to happen to maintain the health of our forests. And with our forests, the health of our waterways. I cannot overstate the importance of this issue. We can't close our eyes and just leave it to Howard County to deal with our deer. We need CA to create its own deer management plan. We need to educate Columbia residents, collaborate with Howard County, and take responsibility for this ongoing and very local ecological disaster. Working together on these and other issues, we can make real change in Columbia. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you for your testimony tonight. Do we have any questions for Kate? All right. Kate?
Yes.
Eric has a question
Just
for
one
you.
question. So, does every village have a CARES group?
6 of the groups have CARES groups or something very similar.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Kate, since this has come up twice, I just want to make sure. I want to highlight something and then ask you a question.
Yep.
I think the idea of going to electric-powered leaf blowers at least and other equipment is a good idea. We should be moving towards that. I do know that at most of the swimming pools, they do have the battery-operated leaf blowers. I've seen the lifeguards using those to great effect out there. So I know we've started, and I think we'll probably have to look at some of the more higher horsepower, intensive use kind of stuff. Just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
Yes, we know you've started, and we're
yes.
grateful. We just want you to pick it up.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair criticism, I appreciate that. With respect to the deer, I completely agree with you, and I don't want to draw any attention away from that. But my understanding is that the Canada goose problem is an equally invasive animal kind of issue. Is that true, or have you guys looked into that at all?
Canada geese are not destroying our forests, no.
Okay, but they're giving us problems in our lakes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right, fair answer, I appreciate it. Thank you. Paul?
I was just going to say.
Oh. Very good. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right. Linda Ortiz-Byrd? I got that. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Ortiz-Byrd. I have been a resident in Owen Brown for just a little over 3 years, and I'm here to introduce Owen Brown environmental group of OB Cares. We're a small group, and we're the baby group of the rest of the Cares group. We've only been active for the past year. We have only 70 members on our email list, but I have a team of committed individuals of about 8 people. They are weed warriors, master gardeners, and master naturalists, and they assist with our environmental events that we present in Owen Brown. This past year, like I said, we've only been doing this for about a year. This past year, we've initiated 2 adopt-a-spots. One is at Lake Elkhorn, and one is in Dasher Green neighborhood. CA made it possible for us to give away hundreds of native perennials to our residents during our fall carnivals, and we'll be doing that again in a couple weeks. We've assisted the Owen Brown Community Association with their annual spring native plant by providing master gardeners with information on pollinator gardens and native plants. We've organized trash cleanup days, invasive weed pools around Lake Elkhorn and other areas in Owen Brown. We've taken part in the Hopewell Meadow that is beginning. The Owen Brown Cares will participate in keeping the weeding, the invasive weeds down when that becomes to full fruition, as well as the Lake Elkhorn bioretention walkable rain garden. Is that what we're calling it? I participated on a team writing the grant for this project and with a couple of other CARES members. And so we also will be taking part in keeping the invasives down once that project has come to its full completion. We also recently applied for a grant through the Maryland DNR Forestry to plant native trees in the open space surrounding the Dasher Green Adopt-a-Spot. We coordinated and worked with both Howard County and Columbia Association, both of whom have supported us with financial and other resources. We will be planting 16 native trees and shrubs in our neighborhood open space, and we'll be doing that on October 26th. If anybody wants to join in on a community tree planting project, that information is out on the Owen Brown website. And I also wanted to give my thanks to the Sustainability Office, especially Natalie Lee. She's been very supportive of my endeavor to get this group off the ground and running. If it wasn't for her assistance and guidance, I don't think I would have gotten to where we are at in this short period of time. We appreciate all the hard work that the CA Open Space Management team has given us, Chris Klim, Sam Quick, as well as our open space crew that's led by Tony Mercado. They've gone out of their way, keeping Owen Brown looking beautiful, keeping the pathways clear, and they've been very supportive of our 2 new adopt spots. We couldn't have done any of it without their guidance and assistance, and they'll be taking part in our tree planting as well. We've also been given a lot of support from our own Owen Brown Community Association board and village office. They're always there, willing to provide and help with whatever we need. We've been working together to educate our residents on the importance of planting native and eradicating the non-native invasive plants as a way to improve our environment and ecosystem. I was planning on bringing up about Howard County native trees, planting native trees, the deer problem. They have covered that, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but I'm in support of everything that Susan and Kate have said. I just don't want to waste your time by repeating similar information, but our group has talked a lot about, how can we go about getting this done. And so with that, I just want to thank you for your constant support. I've always been greeted very, everyone's been very friendly whenever I've reached out to anyone in the CA office. And being a new resident in Owen Brown, I'm very, very happy with the services that we've been given. And I look forward to, meeting and working with everybody more.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony tonight.
Thank you.
We've got some, Eric?
So there's 6 care groups. That means there's 4 villages that don't have a care group. So the question I have is, how does a village get a care group or set up a care group or create one?
Just reach out to the other villages who have CARES groups.
Yeah.
All of our villages have information about our community groups on their websites, and even through CA, they're especially Natalie, they're aware of who all of the CARES groups are.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, just Linda's being modest. The way Owen Brown got a CARES group is that a very motivated individual picked it up off the dirt and got it going. So you just need someone in your village to want to do it and to motivate other people to do it.
Can you get my charger?
Okay, anybody else? Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, Liz Hammond. Liz joins us online. Liz?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Liz Hammond. I own a home in Hickory Ridge Village, where I live with my husband and my 2 children. The remarks that I have prepared for this evening, the remarks that I have prepared for this evening relate to the Columbia Association's lack of engagement with renters who reside on assessed property. Thousands of Columbia residents live on CA-assessed land in corporately managed apartment communities or rent space in townhomes or condos from small LLCs or individual property owners. All of these residents are entitled to the discounts and benefits that are afforded to everyone who pays into the CA annually. Many of these residents are eligible to vote in village elections. Very few of these residents know any of this by no fault of their own. Many do not even know that their rent includes a portion of the owner's assessment obligation. This is problematic for a number of reasons. First and foremost, these residents are deprived of the knowledge that they belong to a larger community. They don't know that their village regularly hosts free events, and if they do know that, they don't know that they are welcome to attend. They don't know that they can volunteer to serve on village committees or access the many resources available at community association buildings. More than once, I have heard someone say some version of, well, they're adults, and it's their responsibility to seek out information about CA and the villages, and they don't need any more outreach than any other residents. This is a ludicrous attitude to have in the context of the highly unusual planned community and HOA structure that Columbia is. Most Americans will live their whole lives without encountering something like this. So it would not be natural for someone to know to go ask about it. Every year when I knock on apartment doors for CA elections, I meet people who are surprised to find out that they are part of CA. And they tell me about how when they go to the pool, they pay the non-CA rate for an afternoon at the pool with their family. So they're paying their assessment into their rent unknowingly. Then they're paying more than twice the amount they should be paying at the pool. Some people might call that predatory. With the amount of money that CA receives from landlords each year, you would think that somebody could take a snow cone truck or something out to some apartment complexes on a hot night and spend some time talking to renter residents. I don't think there's ever been a renter on the CA board. I know there hasn't ever been one on the Hickory Ridge Village board, largely, again, because they don't know that they can run. It would be great if somebody, were focused on this, or if it was somebody's job to focus on outreach to underrepresented communities in Columbia, because being a renter doesn't make you have some other kind of status in the Columbia Association ecosystem. It's the same as the homeowners. So they should have the same access to information and outreach. And it's a failure on the part of, I think, communications, outreach, leadership in general. And it's not a problem that's a secret. It's been known about for years. I've talked about it for a long time.
Okay, Liz? Hey,
yes.
We've gotten to the end of the 3 minutes. If you could just wrap up your thoughts.
Timer, I'm looking right at the timer. It never started.
We've got a timer here in the room, so I apologize.
Okay.
We don't have that one working. So if you could just wrap it up, give me a couple of more sentences.
I'm done.
Well, then I'm going to move on and ask if there are any questions from any of the board members here. Okay. Ashley?
Is there anything that we do by mail? I know in the USPS you used to get something when you were, you newly moved in. I haven't had a renter experience, right? So I don't know if it purely happens whenever you purchase a unit versus if you become a renter. But I don't know, is there a way for Columbia Association to be aware whenever somebody does go to rent a place? And obviously there's a difference if you're renting from an owner versus an apartment complex. And I'm also curious if this is something that has changed over the decades, right? Did Columbia Association was there more awareness amongst renters 30 years ago versus what there is now? Ideally, I would hope it has improved given social media and our ability to disperse information, but I would be curious about that.
I don't know the answer to your question other than to say, I know that ballots are mailed to everyone who's eligible to vote. But the problem is that when they get them, they just toss them because they think this is not for me. Because they've never heard of it before.
Yeah.
It looks like junk.
There's also an issue. I had the same problem when I was knocking on doors, right, running for the board, is that people can vote only as an owner in their actual HOA election, but you can vote as an owner or a renter in the Columbia, or like for the Columbia Council or your village elections, right? So that's a hard thing to differentiate for a lot of people if they don't get into the nuance of Columbia, how Columbia's ran, right? So yeah, it's something of interest to me. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear, later on from the staff when there's a chance to gather more information about the history of and what we have the ability to gather information on, how we can do outreach.
All right. Thank you, Liz. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, hold on. Nope. Looks like we got more questions. Sorry. Sky? Okay.
Yeah, I guess a long time ago, maybe 7 or 10 years ago, CA had a welcome package that they would give to new residents. I do know that our village also has a welcome packet. And I'm wondering if we could find out what CA does and if they're willing to reinstitute a program like that if they don't already have it.
Okay. All right.
In our village, they get a letter saying, welcome, please come to the community center and pick up your welcome packet. And they get it when they first move in, when they're like adjusting to their new address and they're getting the previous person's mail and everything else. So again, it's not a great time to send a letter saying, welcome and come and get your welcome packet. And I think that's just for homeowners anyhow. I don't know if it goes to renters, but they would have to actually go to the building and get their welcome packet, which I think is also unfortunate that it's not just delivered. I know we've had people volunteer to be the people that take them and deliver them. There aren't that many. If you do all of them, in a weekend or something every 6 months, there can't be that many.
Okay. All right, Eric?
Thanks.
So I'm going to assume, based on your testimony, that there aren't too many renters that actually have a Columbia card or even are aware that the Columbia card exists. So I guess my question is, how can CA better facilitate that? How can we get Columbia cards in the hands of renters? In fact, how can we get more Columbia cards in the hands of all new residents?
Yeah, I think coming out to the communities, being in the parking lots during, hours when people are coming and going, making sure that transportation isn't a barrier, making sure that, it's not one more errand people have to run, or there's a high turnover in the leasing offices in like the corporately run places. So you might be able to talk to one renter manager person about CA, but in a month they're gone and they've been replaced by somebody else. So maybe we need signage and posters to put up, or something that we give people when they sign their lease. But I think, it's time to get creative.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Right.
Thank you.
All right. Roy Appletree? Roy, welcome back to the CA Board of Directors.
It's been a while. I'm just here to say thank you. Having seen the film, it's clear Susan should have come, not me. Speaks much better to it. Two or three things, actually 2 areas to hit. One is working with the staff is tremendous. And we had a long relationship when Patty Hinkle was here, then hit COVID and all that you went through as an institution. We kept working with you. Robin Simpson reached out to us 2-3 years ago, and that's just been fantastic. And my wife is always so excited when CA delivers the supplies. The grounds crew couldn't be better, happier, friendlier. And so I want to make those points. The other, and you all know your communities well, and the villages, we actually get a lot of the collections through the villages, but do want to mention a couple numbers. And the first one is 23. Prepare for Success is 23 years old, all volunteer. CA has been there from the beginning. CA and the libraries were key and have been key to the process. The second number is 30%. I hope all of you are aware of it, but 30% of the students in the Howard County Public School System receive free and reduced meals. I know it's been a shock to a lot of our friends and a lot of folks. The third number is 17,000. That 30% represents 17,000 students who are our general target with our partnership with the Public School Systems Community Action Council. And the last number is 4,500. This year, we actually served 4,500 students. It was a record, really a record for the community. And we point out that we're by far the largest group doing it, but there are many churches, businesses with relationships. The more the merrier. Just bottom line that the need is just tremendous. And so thank CA for being involved, and would certainly encourage and would have no reason to expect that you wouldn't continue to be involved. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Roy. Anybody have any questions? Anyone? All right, no, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Brian England. Brian, welcome back to the Board of Directors.
It's nice to be back. And I expect you know which subjects I'm going to talk about as well. Okay. My name is Brian England. I'm speaking on behalf of the Howard County Citizens Association. And the first topic is watershed. It's been 15 years since the Columbia Watershed Management Plan was released. 18 projects have been finished, and other recommendations in the plan are completed. And as the plan says, the next step is to evaluate and see what worked and what didn't work. It's been 7 years since the CA Open Space Assessment Report has been completed. It clearly states in the Columbia Watershed Management Plan should be updated to reflect lessons learned. Until the updated Columbia Watershed Management Plan is completed, we request a moratorium be put on all stormwater projects in Columbia. And I see at the moment, in one of your things tonight, there's a memorandum saying that there's going to be a hold on restoration, so that's very good. In the meantime, demand that the county carry out inspections on all stormwater best management practices in Columbia to ensure they're working and maintained. Evaluate damage done to CA property from all the county streamwater outfalls in Columbia. Demand that all future updates to Columbia streets by Howard County include stormwater mitigation by using methods like street lawn upgrades to soak up the rainfall. And now I'm going on to talk about Gateway and governance. Recently, the Gateway Master Plan Advisory Meeting, there was an in-depth discussion on 3 concepts. With the southern part of the Gateway being Newtown, it was critical that the CA be at the table. Attending the Gateway meeting were 3 representatives from the Abrams Development Corporation, which included the owner, Mickey Abrams. 3 representatives from the Howard Hughes Corporation, including Greg Fitchett, Executive Vice President. It seems to us that the CA should have been there. Recently, I emailed Sean McInnes and John Kuchno about Columbia governance, and their reply didn't attempt to address our concerns. John sent me a website link to CA responsibilities that didn't include governance. I asked him to define the CA role, giving examples from past where the CA was clearly involved in oversight of Columbia redevelopment. Lakeside and Woodmere were the 2 examples. He replied by saying, I cannot provide a supplement to my prior response. The revised issues you raise are beyond the scope of what I would address. We simply don't understand this response and would like at some point for you to elaborate and answer the things that I sent to you. I'm pleased to say this morning I received a call from the President's office and we're going to have a meeting scheduled in October. And I think it's for a coffee, so I thought I'd let you know that I like a flat white with an extra shot in a Fahir cup. So if you're there beforehand, you know what we've got. Okay, in the meantime, for something before the meeting, we request that you reinstate the Columbia Development Tracker and clearly define the CA role of oversight of Columbia redevelopment. The CA has spent time and money on 2 Newtown reports in 2014 and 2021. It's time to use their findings to clearly define CA's role in redevelopment. The 2021 report says a restructuring of the interface between the county, CA and village leadership is needed. CA needs also to take a strong position to ensure how Hughes enforces the covenants under its control. I just want to add just one example. We've all come in this evening. As we drove in, we passed the Exxon station. And we all saw the Exxon station. And that's because all the trees were took down. Now, when I contacted Howard Hughes, and Nancy Tucker said she would look into it. She didn't. I contacted the county. They said it's not their responsibility. So I contacted the CA. CA said, we'll send you the details of the ownership of the Exxon station. Now, I don't think it's my job as a citizen to go to the owners of that property to make sure they follow the regulations in Columbia. And I think the CA should be holding Howard Hughes' feet to the fire and say, uphold the covenants and design guidelines that are in place. So hopefully what great timing.
Brian, thank you for your testimony tonight. Do we have any questions for Brian? Anyone? All right. Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, not one question. Okay.
All right. Next up is Dara Baker. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Bill. I also have my own timer. Hi, everyone. My name is Dara Baker. I am a resident of Long Reach. I moved here in 2021. Some of you know me as a familiar face. I am a member of Protect Our Streams, also the CJC Green Team, OMI Green Team. I'm not here to sort of talk about that. I'm here really on what was in that video, the fostering relationships. And I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself to the new board members. You'll probably see me over the next year or so. And I figured some of you are coming into what may seem like an ongoing conversation, and there's not really an opportunity to ask some of those questions. You've probably seen and met some of my colleagues. So hi, I'm Dara. Bill and I used to work for the same agency at the National Archives. I am currently the chief of the library at the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. I have been a federal employee since 2014. Columbia Association is the place where I bought my first home. I was a renter for 30-something years. And so I was so excited to move to this community. I looked for ages when I decided where I was going to move. My experience in Columbia has been full of ups and downs. I figured I would give you a little bit about myself. So I was born in Philadelphia, grew up on Long Island. I did my undergrad at Cornell. I majored in history and entomology. I did a master's degree in history at Harvard. I then ended up with a dissertation advisor who didn't quite survive my dissertation process and had to rethink who I am and what I do. And I went back to school and I became an archivist, a researcher, and a librarian. And so I come to Columbia as somebody who, we talk to the renters, we talk about, following these amazing accomplished colleagues who have built things from the ground up, who are working to support all of us to do the same work that everyone here volunteers to do by serving on this board. I cannot tell you how excited I am to welcome Sean for the for the opportunity that we've had to meet and to really sort of interact more with CA staff to see bringing on somebody who's working on invasives. And for me, I live very close to a stream that was considered for a project. I'm not sure if everyone was aware when it sort of originally was done. The way that the communication, and I've emphasized this before, I live about 20 feet from the edge of the property, but because I wasn't considered a near homeowner, I didn't receive the same types of notifications. My first notification was actually something that I saw next door. And I think that one of the themes that I think should carry through is that there are many ways in which Columbia can communicate with people. Sometimes we hear from you and it is something that we're interested in, and sometimes it is things that should be of interest to us, and it would be helpful if you would give us the notice so that we could pay attention. And so I have been, I am done. I've been informing my community and really working to educate myself and to be someone who can be connected with. So thank you.
Great, great. Do we have any questions for Dara? Okay, I had a quick question for you. Could you give us an example of an organization that you think gets communication right and does do the outreach portion that you think we should be modeling? Could you give us somewhere to go to kind of look?
I mean, there are many different types of examples. I mean, I also don't want the type where you're so inundated that you end up with so much stuff that you also then ignore the emails, because there's also those examples. I would say, for me, one of the organizations that I have found that I respond most frequently to is actually my synagogue. And it is a combination between signing on for a newsletter so something comes in. It is also going to something on a regular basis. So there are times that I will just come to CA even if I'm not speaking. I think that one of the things that is a missed opportunity, really, we don't encourage more people to come to this board meeting, to go to their village board meetings. I mean, it's hard at the end of the day after you've commuted all the way back to be like, oh my God, here we go. I also think that, if CA hasn't done it in a long time, a communication strategy that takes into and gets the advice from the CARES group that has been successful at recruiting, the individual who spoke about renters who probably has some great ideas, to sort of think about things that have been working and not working. And so I saw that, email come out about the budget and I responded to it, but I think there's about 100,000 people who live in and around Columbia, and that response rate should be way higher.
Right, yeah, sure.
And so, I remember going and knocking on doors also at various times and talking to people about issues, and what their response would be, well, that's not the issue that I care about, this is the issue I care about, and until somebody addresses that issue, I'm just not going to think about anything else.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks very much. All right. All right, thank you, Brian. All right, that concludes our resident speak out. We're going to transition to our main meeting, and I think we're going to take a 5-minute recess for everybody to just reset, and we'll be back at, what do we say here, 12 minutes after? We'll say 8:15. All right? We'll stand in recess till 8:15. Thank you. Everybody's welcome to stay. goals. I'm going to turn this back over to Sean to just give us a quick review of what we looked at our last board meeting, and then we'll move from there. Sean?
I don't know if you wanted to approve the minutes, which was on the agenda.
Oh, the consent agenda. We have on the consent agenda the minutes from the July 25th meeting. Does anybody have any objection to the minutes? All right, hearing no objection, the minutes from the July 25th meeting are approved. Thank you.
Okay, so as we all know, I was at the last meeting to present some proposed goals for the board to consider. There was some discussion around the goals and a request to add an additional goal based around just CA benchmarks. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk through the presentation. Again, I'll go through it quicker because you've seen the goals, but just to kind of as more as a reminder. And then the board can consider taking a vote on what goals they want to pursue, and we'll move forward with that. I reviewed the goal development process. There was a collaborative effort with the senior leadership team. The objective was to align with CA's mission and values, the current mission and values. And then we wanted to break the goals down to short and long term and what key areas that can be addressed, and give the board some options to make some decisions on that. The development process was based on the previous strategic plan from 2019, and also the draft strategic plan from 24, and also the strategic planning board retreat, and as well as meetings that I had with the individual board members, but also some historical programs and initiative requests that we received. The objectives were really to align with the strategic planning initiatives that I've mentioned, and those those break down to some key areas of strategic alignment, which are community engagement, DEIB, financial stability, modernization, environmental resource sustainability, and wellness. The objectives of the goals are consistent with the mission and vision, which are here. I won't read them back. But the final objectives are really to establish goals that are attainable, quantifiable, consistent with the direction established by the board. So with that, we developed 3 goals that I think are necessary short-term goals. The board has been pretty clear on that. These goals are broken out because we've actually already started on them and we're moving along with them. But the first is obviously the strategic plan. This is something that the board wants to finalize by January, so we are working on that, and we are currently having individual meetings with the board members. I think they've been productive so far, the ones we've had, so we look forward to having more of those. Village facilities, this is evaluating the possibility of CA assuming management of the buildings in the villages. We've also already started on this analysis. We've communicated it with the village managers, the majority of them, and we're moving forward with that. They've been receptive to the analysis. The third is evaluating the lease of our headquarters, the lease purchase agreement. The CA needs to make a decision by April 30th of 2025, so we've started that analysis as well. And now proposed goals 4 through 7, and you'll see there's an 8th one at the end, but we wanted the board to select 2, maybe 3 of the following options to go over. The first is really looking for ways to add value and reduce costs, and to analyze some opportunities where we can do that, that are associated with accessing or using CA's facilities. This would be both a short and long term. I mean, there's things that may be able to be done in the short term, but we really want to take a long term approach at how we can continue to add value and reduce costs. Next, goal 5 is increase online interactivity. I think our website and social media presence is robust, but now we want to go to the next level where we can have more interactivity with the public. And how we do that is through using our GIS information system, geographic information system, through the website. So it's a more interactive experience with the online user. 6 is board development, and this is a request as part of the board retreat, which was to develop a training plan and curriculum for board excellence that addresses the governance structure, board member onboarding and exit planning, and board operations. That's also short and long term. And 7 is natural resource stewardship, and this relates to developing a natural resources stewardship plan by combining and building upon aspects of the watershed management plan, the forest stewardship plan, and the energy management plan. And this would be a long-term project, but I think it's a productive project to accomplish. And last goal 8 is really organizational excellence. And this is internally how we evaluate the success of CA aside from just establishing goals, but on an annual basis, how we benchmark ourselves. And this is just that, advance CA's vision, mission, and values by meeting or exceeding our key benchmarks. And this is short term, and it really encompasses everything we do. How do we do that? First off, drive excellence in CA's operations. This is done by improving processes that ensure CA's resources are used efficiently and effectively. Support CA's long-term fiscal health and stability. And this is for FY25, achieving our budgeted increase in net assets of $3.5 million, or 105% of the previous year. Next is managing our capital planning and expenditures, and this is maintaining and improving our existing facilities, evaluating if we're allocating funds appropriately, which is, we don't want to throw good money after bad, so we look at that, and by not investing in outdated structures. Next is enhance stakeholder engagement. This relates to our community services, but we try to reach targeted goals. Customer satisfaction, we do a lot of surveys, and that's our Net Promoter Score. You've seen that and seen the metrics around that. Excuse me. We also look to increase customer participation by 2 to 3%, and also membership growth by 2 to 3%. And these are some metrics that we try to measure for our stakeholder engagement.
Can you define customer participation with customers?
Eric, could you turn
Oh, sorry. Could you define customer participation? Who are the customers?
Yeah, Dan can speak to that.
That would be anybody who participates in any of our programs.
So the goal is to take, I guess, the number of check-ins and increase that by 2 to 3%?
It's not just check-ins, it's everybody who interacts with one of our programs or services, so yes.
So is it number of check-ins or number of people?
It's the number of participants, whether they check in, whether they register for a program. They don't have to check in to register and participate in the program. So it's the number of participants that constitute interacting with our programs and services.
So the concern I have here is we have customers, members, but I don't see anything about residents. So I don't see how, because you could meet all these goals and have fewer residents using the facilities.
Okay. Eric, if we could just get through the last slide or two, we'll get to the general discussion. I think that's an important point, but we'll get to the end here, and then we'll get back to it, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is, continually evaluate and address the evolving needs of the community. We want to develop a comprehensive framework of assets to assess feedback on CA's facilities and programs. You see, we do a lot of surveying. This relates to that. We look to increase that, but also find ways to do more effective surveying of the public to gauge, what CA is doing, get some feedback on that. So we're continually looking to do that. And once again, ensure environmental and sustainability stewardship. We seek to annually reduce energy consumption, choose green power sources where possible, and encourage sustainable growth, and also improve water quality. And last is expand CA's collaboration within the community. We're constantly forging new partnerships and expanding existing relationships, and we look to maximize that, and we do quantify that at the end of the year. This is just a summary of the proposed goals. The first 3 you can see are highlighted and separated. We've added number 8. And then from 4 to 7, we'd like the board to choose maybe 1 or 2 or up to 3. But you can see there some of them are significant and they are long-term. And that's it.
Okay.
I'll leave it at this with the question slide.
I need to at least get one screen where I can see the online members here, or if Karen and Ashley just want to speak up.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, but I do have my hand raised.
Okay. Let me just see. Can we do that? Yep. All right. Give it just a moment to get the screen corrected here, Karen. Sure. Okay. All right, we're going to go with Mike first, and then we're going to go with Karen and Sky.
Do we have a motion on the table?
No, we
Is there a
don't.
motion on the table?
I've got a question just about 8. The things you just walked through, are those the key benchmarks that you're working against?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Karen?
Yeah, thanks. Sean, great list of goals, all of them on the surface. I think they're good goals. But what I think is missing is why we're doing any of them. Why are we doing them? And then if we achieve the goal, what are we going to do? So, for example, on that, I think it was on the last slide you just showed, you talked about continuously assessing the needs of the community. I like that goal. I do want to know what the community does. In order to what? What are we going to do? Once we have the needs, what are you going to do with that? So those are the things I think that are missing, because it leaves open to interpretation throughout the year. You can say, oh, well, we did assess the needs, and I'm not saying you'll do this. We assessed the needs, we have that information, but then we never did anything with it. I want us to actually do something with the information. As well as I agree with Eric in that we should be increasing resident participation. I think it's lovely that we share our facilities and our programs, but as someone mentioned during Resident Speak Out, 58% of our revenue comes from the annual charge, and I think that the majority, that's what our focus should be on, is how are we bringing good value to people who are paying that annual charge, and those are residents who live on assessed property or work on assessed property. So I would like to see more of a focus on that as well.
All right, thank you, Karen. Eric?
So I'll make the motion. I'll move to approve all 8 goals. Can I get it?
They're not, I mean, we can't do all.
Well, then we can at least discuss the motion and make modifications. So at least this is what was in the packet. This is what we all had to review. So I will make the motion to establish all 8 goals, and then we can make modifications via amendment.
All right, well, I need a second for that.
I second it.
Okay.
And can I speak?
Yes.
I was after Karen. I think if tonight's resident speak out was representative at all, I think items 5 and 7 are important to the community. Increase community engagement and develop the environmental programs. So that's just a comment on tonight.
Thank you. Mike?
I think I like the addition of 8. I would not this year, because I just want to get these goals approved, but in the future, I think a little more collaboration with the board on what the benchmarks are. I think that would be good in future years, and maybe address some of what Eric and Karen are bringing up, and some other thoughts I have, but I don't think that's necessary for this year. I will make a motion to amend Eric's motion and say that we prioritize 5 and 6.
Okay, so Mike has made that motion. Do we have a second for Mike's amendment? We do not have a second. So, all right, I have Ashley's hand up, and then I'm going to go back to, well, Sky, I think you chimed in. I'm going to go back around here. Ashley?
Yep. This is a question probably better for Sean or maybe Jeremy. What is the difference between number 7 and the work that Columbia Association is already doing? Because the climate and sustainability being a priority for Columbia Association is really important, especially to me personally. So how would that be different from the efforts? Like when I go to the athletic club, I see all of the signs that Columbia Association, all of the progress that we've made, right? In terms of going green, for the buildings, the efforts that we're making, just the things that we're implementing. So what would be different for number 7 versus what we're doing right now?
Great question. So number 7 really relates to updating the watershed, the plans that we have in place, the watershed management plan, the forest stewardship plan, and the energy management plan. That's related to goal number 7, and now goal number 8. That is, that's kind of environmental sustainability. That is things that Jeremy and his group do on an annual basis in the community. So the number 7 is really updating the plans that we have in place. And number 8 is really just a consistent focus on environmental sustainability and energy efficiency.
So Columbia Association has, oh my gosh, I forget what it is. It's not like a climate committee, but there's some kind of committee that helps with sustainability, right?
Climate change and sustainability, and there are currently 2 vacancies on the committee.
Oh.
Thanks, Guy.
Okay. So it's not the most filled committee. Do we not update our energy management plan regularly?
Jeremy can speak to our plans.
Yeah, I updated approximately.
I can't hear him.
I update it about every 5 years.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Ashley. Just before we get to anybody else, Chris has just joined us. Welcome aboard, Chris. Good to see you there. Chris has his hand up. What would you like to say, Chris?
Howdy. So I've been here since residents speak out.
Oh.
So the first question is goal number 8. Those are kind of a overarching kind of a thing. Sean, is that something you want to consider for prioritization, or is that 8th goal kind of something that is in the background going to be part of every goal?
It's more frankly, it's a goal we pursue. So it's one of our goals. We've added it. I think the board had requested, how do we, we have these goals that we've presented, but then, how does CA evaluate itself as an organization sort of internally? And that's what this goal number 8 is, because these goals are great, they're productive goals, but there's also an operation that's being run on an annual basis that's highly productive and progressive, and we want to articulate that fact as well.
So is that a candidate that you're asking the board to evaluate for one to prioritize, or no?
I would say no. That's something that we're going to work on. So it's really just choosing between numbers 4 and 7.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure. So kind of in the vein of what Mike tried to do there a minute ago is I would like to make a motion to amend Eric's motion to prioritize goal 7 and goal 4, or I'm sorry, goal 7 and goal 5.
Do we have a motion on the floor, an amendment on the floor?
Yes. Just to keep the bookkeeping here, thank you, Sky, for the question. We have a motion on the floor, which you seconded, to approve all 8 goals. Chris has just asked to amend that motion to prioritize 5 and 7.
Point of information, what does it mean to prioritize?
We'll ask Chris.
The question that was asked was for the board to evaluate these and come up with some for the staff to prioritize, to focus on and put the most energy towards, right? So unless I'm misunderstanding, the ask here is to kind of prioritize these, and they recognize that goals 1 through 3 are short term and should be focused on now. Okay. And then of 4 through 7, choosing 1, 2, or possibly 3. So my motion is to amend your motion, Eric, to prioritize 7 and 5 in that order.
Okay. All right. I have Paul has had his hand up, and then we'll go to Eric.
So
I've been seconded.
No.
I second it.
Okay. Sky has seconded it. Okay. So
is the purpose here to prioritize, or is it selecting 3? I thought it was just selecting.
Just selecting.
Selecting 3, not prioritizing. Okay, up to 3.
So So I guess my question is, would it make more sense to phrase these amendments in terms of striking goals from this list versus prioritizing? Because at the end of the day, we might prioritize 1 or 2 of them, but all 8 goals will still be approved
All right.
based on the current motion.
The view from the chair would be to agree with your statement there, for sure. So we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Chris, do you want to move forward with this, or would you like to withdraw?
I didn't hear a reason to withdraw so far.
All right, any further discussion on prioritizing 5 and 7?
Karen has her hand up.
Karen?
Yeah, I mean, 7 can't be, you can't not have 7, right? You have to have 7s. We're in a climate emergency. We have to have 7. The watershed management plan is done. We've completed all the projects in the watershed management plan. So you have to have 7. Now, I think when you're looking at these, sorry, and I'm switching back and forth because I don't have it printed out. So I think that the number 4 is the one that makes, you know, if you're going to have a second one in there, is the opportunity to add value. When you understand how many residents are not participating in our facilities or programs, we need to figure out how to add value. Why do we have a whole company maintaining facilities and programs for residents that aren't using them? Like, that to me we have to figure out where is the value for the residents. So I think you have to have 4. And then the other one was the stuff that people talked about with outreach today. I would put that one on there also. So I would say 4, 5, and 7 are the 3 that we have to choose, because we are, and we've seen this again and again, we are leaving people out of the conversations a lot. We saw that with the strategic plan when they surveyed people, that we didn't get a good cross-section of Columbians who participated in that survey. So I think that that's happened time and time again, when we're not getting, you know, we want to not just reach the residents who walk into our facilities, but the residents who don't walk into our facilities, who are renters, who may not understand what CA is doing for them. So I think that we need to include that one as well.
All right,
Okay,
Karen, I've got a couple of hands up here. I got to get around the room. Colin's first entry into the discussion, so I'm going to go to him first, then Sky, then Eric.
Yeah, there's actually, there's a few points that Karen made that I was also thinking as well. So, dare I'm going to move to amend Chris's amendment.
Oh, please.
To strike goal 6. End of amendment.
I agree with that.
I'll second it. Okay. I'll second.
I meant second.
And I request separation on that. So
Okay,
it's a separate
Colin,
amendment.
and you have seconded, is that correct?
Yeah, second that.
Okay.
Also, just a point of order, so everyone knows we have 7 minutes left on this.
Okay, well, if this goes through, we're halfway there, so.
That's a bingo.
All right, anybody have any comments on Colin's motion that has been seconded about striking 6?
Well, actually,
Mike?
Yes, I think 6 is a really important one. I think we all know that the board hasn't functioned as smoothly as we would all like it to. And I think we need to take a deliberate step towards investing and improving ourselves. And that will help out with, that'll help the community overall by having a better functioning board of directors. So I think 6 is really important. I don't think 7 is all that important, because it's not like those plans don't exist, and it's not like Jeremy wouldn't be updating them periodically anyway, so there's already a plan to do those. So I don't think that one's as high as a priority. And I just don't think 4 is all that important.
Okay, just going to go around the horn because we still got lots of questions here. Eric?
I assume the discussion is on the motion to, what was your motion, to strike?
To strike 6.
Strike 6. Yeah, I think of these 4, 6 is the least important for our residents. I think the others are certainly much higher importance, so I certainly agree with the motion to strike 6.
All right, thanks. Ashley?
I agree with the motion to strike 6.
Okay.
Call the question on the motion to strike 6, on the amendment to strike 6.
All right, I have one more hand up. Can I just get through Karen really quick, and I'll go right there, okay?
Yeah, I'll hold my comment since I agree with everyone. I'm ready to vote.
Eric calls the question.
On the amendment.
On amendment made by Colin, seconded by Eric, to strike goal 6. There we go. Chris,
Yes.
Ashley,
Yes.
Sky,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Reg is not here. Karen,
Yes.
Mike,
No.
Eric,
Yes.
Colin,
Yes.
and I will say yes. So that is 8-1-0. All right. So 6 is off the table. We'll put that there. We now have a motion on the table to prioritize 5 and 7. Eric.
I'd like to make an amendment to combine 5 and 8 into a single goal that basically that states to increase resident satisfaction and resident engagement.
Okay. Do we have a second to combine 5 and 8?
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion. Eric?
So the reason why I made this motion is basically to simplify things. There's a lot of good stuff in your presentation on 8, but I think it really boils down to resident satisfaction, and 5 boils down to resident engagement. And you can't have resident satisfaction without resident engagement. So I think those are 2 metrics we can track. They're things we can look at, the things we can quantify, and I think they're good goals to have.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Mike?
No, the 5 is not just measuring engagement. It's making a deliberate effort to modify the types of engagements and invest in new types of engagement. Correct me if I'm wrong, it is pursuing a change and addition to our engagement strategies, not just measuring it. So combining it, like Sean has already said, that 4, 5, 6, and 7, he can only do a limited number of those. Just lumping that together with another one doesn't make it, just because you combine it doesn't make it any less of a burden on the staff. We still have to choose whether we're doing it or not. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
All right. Karen? Not Karen. Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I think that 5 is very much separate from 8. 5 is very specific in what it's using for the goal. And 8 is an overarching that kind of touches each of the other goals. So I think that they need to stay separate.
Okay, Sky.
Mike, did you differentiate 4 from 5? Because to me, they could be lumped together.
Go ahead and answer.
No, those are different things.
Okay. All right. Ashley? And then I'll get to you, Colin.
Yeah, Sean, for clarity, number 8 as a goal, you're not adding anything to your plate. You just provided benchmarks for us. Basically, whenever it comes time to, for instance, doing your review, we have something that's quantifiable to judge the day-to-day success that you've accomplished, correct?
Correct.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Colin.
So we have 2 minutes left on this conversation. Second thing, what is the current motion that we have?
The current motion is to combine Goal 5 and Goal 8. Motion by Eric, seconded by Karen.
Okay. And I would like to call the question.
All right. Here we go. Motion, one last comment, and then we're on our way.
So I did want to touch on something that Mike said. So the goal is to increase 5. The goal is to increase engagement. I don't think we need to, at this board meeting, at this level, need to really get into the details of how you manage to increase engagement. These are great ideas on doing so. There are other ideas, there are other ways of doing so. But the key is at the end of the day that engagement's increased. And that there are more people participating. That's the goal. The how, I think, is up to you going forward. And that's why I think simplifying 5 to increase engagement is sufficient. And that's why increase engagement, increase resident satisfaction is all we need for a goal.
All right, we're going to call the question here. All right, we'll go backwards here. I'm going to vote no. Colin?
No.
No?
What's the vote?
The motion is to combine 5 and 8.
Okay.
Eric?
Yes.
Michael?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Paul?
No.
Sky?
No.
Ashley?
No.
Chris?
Nope.
Okay, so that is 2 for, 7 against, 0 abstentions. Okay. Colin?
I would like to move to amend the agenda for additional 5 minutes on this conversation.
Okay.
Friendly amendment to make it 30?
Ooh,
We're never going to get through this.
not a friendly amendment. No.
Amended agenda, 5 minutes, you said?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, so that's Colin and Sky. All right, any quick discussion on this? All right, we call the question. Ashley,
I don't know what I'm answering right now.
this is a motion to extend discussion for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Sky,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mike.
Yeah, and then I'd like to call the question on the 5 and 7.
Okay, well, okay, that's what I'm going to chat here. Eric?
Sure, yes.
Colin?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Chris?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 8.
Okay.
Oh, and Paul, sorry.
It's okay.
Paul. Very good. Okay, Mike, you had something to say?
Yeah, could we call the question on on Chris's amendment
Yes.
for prioritizing 5 and 7?
We're going to call the question to prioritize 5 and 7. There we go.
Point of information, what does it mean to prioritize?
Yeah.
I think they're going to pick up on what we're laying down here when we're saying those 2 are more important than 4.
So what does it mean for the board? At the end of the day, the board's responsibility is to evaluate these goals and how will be performed. And if we don't understand what it means to prioritize as a board, then we can't do that evaluation. So my question still stands for this board. What does a prioritization mean? Because in the past, basically all the goals are equal weight and we evaluate them as such. So I don't understand what prioritization means.
I believe Chris answered this question. Chris, could you restate what prioritize 5 and 7
that
is?
was asked by Sean was for the board to select 1 to 3 of these goals between 4 and 7 to focus on, to be prioritized. Sean, do I have that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, then what's, I don't understand where this isn't.
So
landing.
does this amendment strike all the other goals?
No.
So all the goals are still there, just 2 of them are prioritized.
The question that was asked of the board was to select 1 to 3 of the goals between 4, 5, 6, and 7 to be the next ones for the staff to be focused on after 1, 2, and 3, which they've already begun, right? The question that was asked was to select these. So would it make nothing else is being struck from this. We made a motion and struck 6, but I'm just answering the question that Sean asked of the board was to select 1 to 3 of these to be focused on.
We're down to 3. Is that adequate?
Sean would like to speak. Ashley, Sean?
Yeah, sorry, I think to clarify Chris's motion, I think he said prioritize. I think he just meant of the 4 to be selected, he's selecting 5 and 7. And he just said, and that's what I think, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's.
The question I have is, does that get rid of 4 and 8?
No.
No.
No, 8, we're definitely going to do. That's kind of our internal assessment, but we've added that.
That's a board decision, but does this motion fundamentally because this is my concern, is I'm not sure that, does this motion get rid of 4? Is 4 still here? What's the status of 4 if we prioritize 5 and 7?
For the sake of clarity, our discussion right now is discussing goals 4 through 7.
I realize that.
So 8 is not part of this discussion at this point.
I realize that.
Okay.
The question is if we, okay, I'll make another amendment to prioritize 4 also. A friendly amendment to prioritize 4 also.
Yeah, question has been called. So, all right, let's go with prioritize 5 and 7. There we go. Chris?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Colin?
Yes.
And I will vote no. So that's 7-0. Motion passes. All right. So, given that 5 and 7 have been prioritized, Colin,
I would like to call the question on the motion.
the motion to, hold on, I got it here. There it is. I need to make sure I read this correctly.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion is to approve all 8 goals, amended to strike 6, and to prioritize 5 and 7. That is the motion.
Yes.
Okay, so does that mean?
Point of order?
Can I ask a question now?
Okay, Karen, I'm going to call on you, but let's work on the hands here. Karen?
Who said point of order?
I'm pausing that. I'll let Karen speak.
Thanks. So I want to make sure that I understand before we vote here that we're prioritizing 5 and 7, meaning if you're working on 4 and suddenly time becomes a problem or money becomes a problem or whatever, 5 and 7 take precedence, but we're still working on 4.
I don't think so.
Why
Yes.
would we drop a goal that looks to make
We
sure
will
that
be
we're
working, we'll be, all of the goals that are listed, we'll be working on in some form or fashion.
Right.
I'm just asking for the board to kind of prioritize what, of the numbers 4 through 7, what do they feel is the most important?
Point of information, would you still be working on 6?
I mean, I think the board's been pretty clear, like they don't want to pursue that, but the others, there's been some discussion around it. I think there's some benefit to the residents and the community with the other goals around that.
Well, Dan?
I would just like to add, much like number 8, number 4 is something that we actually do on a daily basis, so it will continue whether it's prioritized or not. It is something that staff does routinely and with with every program and service we provide. So we will always continue to work on that.
Okay. All right, so restating the question as best that I can. The motion is to approve all 8 goals, striking 6, prioritizing 5 and 7, but also keeping 4. Yes?
I'd like to make another amendment.
We called the question.
I will, in that case, I'd like to challenge the call on the question that requires a 2/3 vote to approve. Point of order.
I think we're a little bit in the weeds here. John?
2/3 vote to approve for what reason?
For the calling the question. So to call a question would require a 2/3 vote to have the call of the question approved by Robert's rules.
Frankly, I don't know.
I mean, otherwise, anyone could just call a question whenever they felt like it, and we'd be voting before people are prepared.
Can I clarify the motion? Prioritizing 5 and 7 within the 4, 5, 6, and 7 group.
So just to clarify, my motion to cut off debate is a 2/3 vote, and basically calling question is the motion to call off debate, to cut debate. So right now we're in debate. If you want to cut debate off, that requires a 2/3 vote.
All right, well, let's give it a try. Everybody ready?
2/3 of 8? 2/3 of 9, okay.
2/3 of those present.
Right.
Can you just clarify one last time? Is this to end debate or is this for the motion?
We're going
to end debate, I think.
You want a 2/3 vote to end debate?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's an easier thing to state. We need a second for that?
I'll second it.
Good job, Karen. Motion to end debate. All right. Here we go. Eric?
So I vote to not end debate, so.
That's a no. Karen?
No.
Chris?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Bill? Yes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, Paul. Here's the thing, Paul, is I have two sets of, I have one that has your name on it, and I have one that doesn't. So I keep going down the list here. My apologies.
That's all good.
I honestly, from my heart, I apologize. Your vote?
Yes.
Yes. So that is 7-4, 2 against, no abstentions. It passes the 2/3 vote. So we have a motion to call the question. I have everybody's name here. I'm going to go Paul. This is to approve all 8 goals, strike 6, prioritize 5 and 7, and bring 4 along the ride, for the ride.
Yes.
Thank you. Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Colin?
Yes.
I say yes. Chris?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Okay. Julia and I are going to have fun writing that up. Okay. So, moving on. Next item on the agenda. I'll get it. There we go. President's goals and objectives. All right, new business. Everybody ready for new business? Included from our Board Operations Committee was a discussion of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging as a board committee. Sky?
Yeah, those initials have been around for a few years. I've heard some other initials, and one group was IDEA, Inclusion, Diversity, whatever E is, A for accessibility. And I'm wondering, I haven't received any training in it. I know my village staff did maybe 3 years ago. So I'm wondering if we could, at some point, get an explanation of why there's belonging instead of accessibility or the other letter. It doesn't have to be now.
All right. Anyone else? Open discussion here. Eric?
So this committee, one, we don't have any backup material for this, so I'm not quite certain what the activities that this committee would be conducting, what this committee would actually be doing. And also, based on our previous advisory committees that we used to have 11 board advisory committees. This strikes me as it's a similar type of committee. So I would move to just make this a staff committee and hand it off to staff and table this committee. Okay. I don't see why this would be a board committee when we've got a whole bunch of other advisory committees that are staff committees.
All right. I'll go to Karen, and then I'm going to put myself in the queue.
Yeah, Colin is the one who wanted to put this on the agenda, and I would really like him to explain exactly what he wanted that committee to do, because that was some of the questions that we had when he asked for this to go on the agenda.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what, I equally wanted this to be on the agenda, and I'll just give my 2 cents on this. I have come to understand in my worldview that the diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of corporate culture, I think, is similar to workplace safety and ethics, in that there are many organizations out there that certainly say, hey, we're very good at being inclusive, or we have a very diverse workforce. Much like I've seen, and in my professional work environment, I've worked in all kinds of power generation plants, solar, geothermal, coal, nuclear. All of them claim to have a workplace safety program. But every time I've walked into any place, an oil refinery, wherever I've been, you can see who really practices and buys into safety and who doesn't. And the people who buy into it have established committees that set up and make sure that training happens, provide tools and briefings on a regular basis so that safety actually happens. I think the same thing happens when you're talking about ethics and making sure that especially officers and directors are behaving ethically. DEI, I believe, is very similar to that, in that we could say that we're going to put diversity in everything we do, but unless we're going to sit down and provide training for people, and we're going to provide metrics, and we're going to discuss it, and we're going to use tools to become a more inclusive and diverse organization, we're just not getting it done. So I look at this as a board-level committee similar to the audit committee or the risk management committee. The board should be involved in this. We could have qualified members of the community in it if we wished. We would have staff involved in this, and we should really go forward and make this part of our culture and demonstrate that by making sure that this profile of a board committee is established to ensure that going forward, we're not only saying that we're diverse, but we're going to demonstrate the practice and implementation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to go to Mike, then Eric, then Colin. Yes.
So I'm pretty skeptical of this idea. It kind of sounds like a solution in search of a problem to me, but I'm open to it. But this is kind of an impossible conversation to have without having the scope of the committee written down, the authority we're delegating to it, the composition of it, right? If someone wants to have this thing come into existence, I'd kind of like to table this discussion until someone can put it on paper, and then we actually know what we're discussing.
Thank you. Eric.
So I'd like to go a step higher level. I'd like to sort of discuss our committee structure as a whole. So a couple years ago, we had 11 advisory committees. The board made the advisory committees staff committees. So I think before we start making new committees out of brand new committees, I think we need to step back and look at what is our committee structure, because now I see us going down the road again, just creating more random committees that don't necessarily have a cohesive whole. And if you go back a decade, we had, in addition to an audit committee, an oversight committee, in addition to the Board of Operations committee, we also had things like a strategic planning committee that looked at where the board looked at the budget and the strategic plan. And I think it's important that we actually look at our committee structure as a whole at a high level before we start trying to create individual committees, and look at how this committee would fit into that structure. Because looking at our current structure, I see this looks like a staff committee.
Thank you. Colin, and then Karen, I see your hand up, then I'll go to Sky.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts. I want to echo a lot of what you said, Bill, as to one of the reasons why I put it on the agenda log and why I feel passionate about this. One of my concerns is that I think it's great that we can say that we have DEIB initiatives throughout the organization and throughout the strategic plan and throughout policies, but my concern and my pause is that when we go down that route, it can feel or can seem like those initiatives get lost. And I don't want us to lose any of that. And I'm hoping that this level of committee can shed light on all of the great work that CA does through the lens of DEIB. And Sky, I really want to emphasize your point. I don't know what the right letters are, and I think that that would be an excellent task for this committee to talk about, because I think you're absolutely right. I think that we should be mindful and considerate about accessibility. I'm also interested in the term of belongingness, because if we start doing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and people still don't feel like they are of this community, then really what is all that work for? But again, I think that that's something for this committee to talk about. And Mike, I hear you as well. I think what I'm thinking about is that it may be helpful. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent. I do want to recognize that this is new business, and this is exactly what I was hoping for when we put this on as new business, is to have this kind of conversation at a kind of high level so we could bring it back if the board felt like that this was something that we could bring back for old business. And Mike, I really hear you for that, and I'm wondering I'm still interested if other folks have other thoughts or other conversations to have, but I'm wondering if we were to bring this back for old business, that, Sean, we partner with staff and start thinking about what would make sense for some of the parameters for this to be a board committee, and what that might look like in the future. I don't know if that makes sense, or is that an appropriate route?
You said a board committee, so you want it to be a board committee?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want support from the staff to draft, say, that committee charge and what that would be?
I would appreciate that. I think that would be helpful, if that makes sense.
All right. All right, I've got Sky and Karen in the queue, then I'll come to you, Mike.
I thought I was first.
Yes. You had your hand up?
Oh, okay, and then Karen after me, maybe?
Yes.
It's my recollection when we discussed this before that DEI would filter down to every single employee, part-time, full-time, volunteer, member, resident, whatever, to the smallest work unit, but that the board committee would maybe have oversight, maybe would decide to have a certain number of hours of training by somebody, and then invite everybody, and the staff would get annual reports of metrics and things like that. I'm sorry, the board committee would receive annual reports so that they could determine if the charter was being adhered to, or if the committee and all of CA needed to veer off a little bit. So.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Karen?
Yeah, so Mike said some of what I was thinking, but the thing that I think is missing here is we can't ask a committee to do something if we don't even know where we are. We don't even have a baseline for where we are. So it sounds to me like, Bill, from your description and what Colin was just saying, is that we actually need to do some sort of an assessment, an audit, call it what you want, something that says, here's how the Columbia Association is performing when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or whatever letters you choose to call it. So that we at least understand before we set up any board committee, I would think that you would want to do some sort of an assessment first to figure out, are we doing it well? Are we not doing it well? What are the things that we're missing? And that's where a committee would come in to help fill those gaps, to help bring us up to where we wanted to be based on the assessment that we got. And right now, I just don't see how a committee can even do anything. It will be just spinning its wheels from where I stand right now. So I agree. I think we should table this, and I'd rather us talk about an assessment of where we are than actually a board committee.
All right, thanks, Mike. And then I'm going to jump in, and then we'll go to Eric.
Like 10 minutes ago, we approved annual goals, like 6.5, 7 annual goals. And we didn't make it very long before we started having some mission creep and trying to add more stuff to the staff's plate. And I know you don't think this is probably a ton of work. It probably, in the grand scheme of things, wouldn't be. But we really got to, when we commit to giving the staff some direction, we should really stick to it. So I wouldn't support the idea of having staff help refine these ideas. I think it's really incumbent on the board members who think this is a good idea to really, convince the other board members first before committing staff time to that.
All right, I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to go to Eric. And I think this is part of it. If we're going to convince each other, we should be doing it in this public manner. Just to give you guys a little bit of an example, it's not only just process or methodology or dogma. In my work environment, we have what we call the Purple Flag tool. And Keith O'Neill, former member from King's Contrivance, tried to implement this in a certain way 2 years ago. In my work environment, if there is language that is offensive to somebody, what we say is, hey, purple flag, which means, hey, something was said that really does not sit well with me. And it's explained and dealt with either right there or immediately after a meeting. When Keith was on the board, he asked the board at that time to stop making references to things being crazy or insane and not to use language that challenged mental health. And that's a perfect example of a purple flag. Hey, please don't use those terms because those are offensive to me. That is just one tool that DEI brings to a workplace environment, whether it be the boardroom or in a staff situation or frontline people working at the pool. These are things that we should be looking towards to make this a better workplace, a better environment for everybody. It's just one example, but these are the kind of things that I would imagine we could look at going forward and give staff direction to not only look at charters, but collecting tools like these. There are many examples out there. I just wanted to say that. I'm going to run over to...
Point of order, we have about a minute and change.
Okay, I'm going to have Eric speak, and then I'm just going to allow everybody one last, and we'll get out of this.
I move to table this until we actually get more information on what this committee's mission is.
Who would provide that information?
I mean, every committee has to have a mission charter statement. So without that, I think this discussion is sort of spinning its wheels. So I'd move to table until we get a mission and charter for this committee.
So, Colin?
I don't know if...
Would you like to second?
Well, I was... no.
I seconded it. I already seconded it, Bill.
Okay. So that's okay. All right, Colin.
I was going to suggest, Eric, maybe Sean and I, maybe we can have a half-hour chat and we can talk about the next best steps, and then I can bring that back to the board. And I don't know if we need this motion at all, Eric.
I probably don't, because we've got a minute left on the discussion, so it might table itself.
Okay.
All right. Well, any other discussion on the motion? We don't discuss tabling. That's it. Chris?
What is the vote?
We are motion to table the DEI discussion until a charter is...
Until we get more information, such as a charter or mission statement, like information that we can work with.
Until more information.
And I'd also appreciate some more information on the general committee structure as an overarching philosophy for the organization.
Right. We'll limit it to the discussion of the DEI committee. Chris?
Yes.
Ashley?
It's not going to come back up on business until there's progress, right? Like
Yes.
it can't show back up on our agenda otherwise?
Yes.
Okay. Then yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
And I vote no. All right, so that's pretty easy. 8-1-0. All right. DEI is tabled until we have more information. Next on new business, scheduling a board work session on board policies. This came up at our board operations committee. Karen, did you put this? Karen, you have
I did. I did. Do you want me to talk about it?
Yes, please give us a little bit of a rolling start here.
Yeah, okay. So, sorry about your dry eyes, Ashley. Sorry, just, so we have policies on policies on policies, and I don't think the board actually knows what the policies are. John had started an effort last year to try to dig out all the policies that we have and see what we needed to, what could be gotten rid of, what needed to be updated, those types of things. So I think we need to have a work session to actually talk about all these policies, because a lot of times I think we're voting on things. We have no idea what policies apply or don't apply, and I think it's dangerous. So I think the board needs to have a centralized area where all the policies are, they're easily referenced, and we don't have any of that yet. So I had suggested putting it on the agenda, and Bill said maybe we needed a work session. So that's where that came from.
Okay, Sky and then Colin.
Yeah, I'd like to ask John how many or what percentage of the policies he has gone through and where we are on that.
If you could, John.
Okay, so we've made substantial progress. We're still continuing to go through. We're not done by any means, but I can tell you that we've gone through at least 125 policies, and we've tried to categorize them into some that we are pretty sure are not actual board policies. There's a certain percentage. Some that are obsolete and probably can be gotten rid of. Some that do look like they're still valid and considered relevant policies. And others that we're not sure. We can't really tell. So we've gone through, the majority. There's still some work to do. What I would suggest, and I think this plan for a meeting is a good idea to discuss. I would suggest, because I think there are some sensitive things, that we initially have a closed meeting, a short closed meeting on, because there are some legal issues that I think involve risk management that I don't think are appropriate for public consumption. And so if you wanted to combine a short meeting closed before you started another one, say we did it at 6:30, and if you had another meeting at 7 to pick up a public meeting, we could do that. I would also enable you, if there were legal questions that came, for me to be able to talk to you about that. But I really need some guidance, or we need some guidance about how you want to handle it, because it would also affect the personnel we assign to these things and how long it's going to take, depending on the benchmarks and when we decide to cut certain things off. If we had a time limit for after a certain date, we could make the work much easier. I mean, I've got several ideas that you could consider, and you can make choices, in terms of sunsetting policies, having on a regular basis, combining policies. But I do believe that it would be a good idea to have a session where you hash these things out. But if you're going to ask legal questions, and there are some issues that I think are a little sensitive that I think involve legal advice, I'd prefer to have a closed session, at least on that part first, and then you can have an open session afterward.
Okay, it's an important piece to consider. Mike? Were you first?
Are all these policies that you're uncovering, and I don't understand if this is like a practical problem that is causing confusion for the execution of CA operations, or if this is like just kind of a board knowledge management problem that they're unclear on what policies are still on the books and things like that. Could you provide some clarity there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one idea is to just, let's say we pick a date that we say, okay, we're anything before 2014 or 2019, we are going to archive, but we'll continue to operate as we've done. And if we feel that things should be brought to the board's attention, we'll bring them to a meeting. That would affect versus going back to 1978 and looking from the beginning and having to go through every policy. So yes, I think some of it is a board information thing. I don't think it's going to change the way we operate. We'll continue to operate under the same guidance that we understand the board does, but it's not the best organization. It's not really digitized, and I think it's a valid point that we'd like to put them online. And one thing that I think you really should do is we should start numbering these things. There's no numbering system. There's no indexing. Yeah. It's kind of crazy that you don't have any numbers assigned to things. It would make it easier to find things. So, I mean, it's not the best organization. I don't want to get into all the issues. I mean, there are certain policies that I think we do that cross over and that you've passed, but we're not exactly sure. We could bring those to the board and say, okay, how do you want to proceed with this policy? And frankly, one of them relates to something you talked about tonight, whether you call it DEI or DEIB, or there's a whole area that I think it's a little confusing what is out there, and I think we need to bring that back and say, okay, here's our understanding, or here's how do you want to proceed? So it's really to clarify things, but it's really a big task, and we would need, I'd just like to get some direction from the board. How do you want to proceed? And I'll give you some ideas, and you run with it. Let us know what you want to do.
All right. I skipped over Colin, and I'll come right to you, Eric. I apologize.
So I just want to shout out Karen and Bill, because I think that having this work session, I think, is a great idea, and I think it'll be really helpful for everyone. Karen, I don't want to put you on a spot in the moment, but I'm because essentially we don't have an agenda log for what this would be, thinking of some possible topics that we would have on this agenda. And John, from what I'm hearing from you, and let me know if I missed something or misinterpreted something, but I'm hearing about sunsetting policies, about combining policies, just a general review and orientation, talking about a numbering system, and then just kind of high-level strategy from the board. Is that a skeleton?
I think that's a good summary, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Karen, did you have other high-level agenda things that you wanted to make sure that we were at least on the radar? Again, not to put you on the spot, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm thinking through what John just said, because I'm trying to organize it in my head as to how we want to do this. But yeah, like for instance, I'll just use the example when I was working through the easement policy last year. We voted to amend the easement policy. Where would I go to see the amended easement policy? Is it on the website? Where would I find that? Where can I find that it got updated after we took the vote on the April 25th meeting to that notification to residents was now included? Where would I find that? So that's even a recent policy. And we were actually amending a policy that had been written, if memory serves, in 2008, 2009. So we are taking all these votes all the time. Sorry, I'm boring Ashley. So where does all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, just to answer your immediate question, yes, it was amended, and I've seen the amended policy that reflects the changes that you made. So I assumed it was put in the group of everything else, but I don't know for sure, but there is an amended policy that reflects the changes you made.
All right, guys, just hold on just a second for everybody. I know this is new business, and the discussion is a little bit more free-forming, but if Colin asks a question of Karen, which then gets a response from John, it gets all the way away from me, and I'm supposed to facilitate this in some way. So let's all try and work together. That's all I'm going to say on that.
So to go back to Colin's question, is that's the type of thing I'm looking for us to have. And I think John may have said this. I love that he brought up, we need to number these policies. They should probably have an automatic review on them. So, you know, what is the look back for these policies? When something comes up to the board, do we see a reference to the policies, that type of stuff, so that when we're voting, we know exactly which policies already are in existence? Are they adequate? Do we need to change them? That type of stuff. So, Colin, does that answer your question for me? And John, thank you for your help on that last one.
Karen, come on. I just asked for being in the middle of this.
For the record, I defer to Karen, so she's just going back and doing bookend. But yes, that did. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Eric has been very patient. Eric, go ahead.
So last year you presented the board with, I think, 150 policies dating back all the way to 1975, I think. And I think that set is probably a sufficient set. I don't think we need to go digging through the basements of our archives looking for more policies. I think that set probably covers all the active policies. But the question I want to know is, of those 150 policies, which ones are actively being followed by the organizations and which ones are not? And for the ones that are not being followed, why aren't they being followed? And I think those are the questions that we need to understand.
I'm going to answer.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's part of the issue is there are some that we believe are, but there are others that, frankly, I don't know. I mean, there are some that, from my understanding, are certainly the spirit is followed, although it may not be exactly the rule. I think some have been evolved. But that's why we want to bring them to your attention, because where there's a slight difference in the implementation, we could say, this is what you passed in 1980, this is what we're doing. Do you want to make this the official policy? I mean, if you're asking me to go back at every single policy and say, are we doing this? That's a substantial amount of work. That's why, and that's going to take an inordinate amount of time. That's why I would suggest a good idea, and again, this is for your discussion, is let's pick a date and archive everything before, and it will make it easier for us to move forward from there.
So my follow-up question is, whose responsibility is it to ensure that the policies are getting followed? I mean, whose responsibility is it to make sure we've got all these board-approved policies? I realize some are inactive, but the ones that are active are the ones that should be followed. How do we ensure that those are getting followed?
I mean, I think I can speak to that. I mean, ultimately, it's my responsibility to make sure we're following the policies. Generally speaking, things that happen on an annual, daily, weekly basis, those policies are well known. I think a lot of the policies, going back to 1967, some of them, this is very kind of a municipal environment where boards make policies for whatever reason and they move along. And sometimes those policies are legitimate and they're longstanding. Other times those policies are just, they think at the time they're going to be longstanding, but they get, time passes, things change. I think John alluded to that. So, we're tasked with making sure we're following the current board policies. If there's something that needs some research, we do that research. But for the most part, there's the policies we follow are mostly current. Now John's doing the research on older policies.
All right, we're going to look to wrap up here. I'm going to go with Mike, and then I'm going to jump in, Sky and Colin, and then we'll probably walk out of here from here.
It sounds like we need this meeting. No one's been opposed to it.
Yeah, well, John, if you can just go ahead and find us a meeting time. And I think it's really dependent on staff's ability to get together the discussion. So this will probably be at least staff initiated and then board discussed, that kind of a meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you want to follow through with, I agree with John's recommendation, maybe doing a closed session prior to a regular scheduled meeting?
I think there's general agreement on that.
Okay. Sky?
I don't understand what we would accomplish in the work session. What would be the goal of it? And because what we're having right now is just a discussion, a free-for-all. And we would need a structured work session, and I just don't see that, except for the types of policies that John mentioned. We would have to sort them into those categories.
Colin.
Two thoughts. My first thought was John asked for a date, so I'm wondering if we can just kind of pick a date and work from it. John, I was thinking July 1st, 2014, 10 years ago. Is that a date that makes sense?
We had talked about 2014, I could tell you.
Great.
If you want to make it 2019, that's even better, but 2014, that's kind of 10 years. That takes a lot into account.
1965.
And that would also, for example, Karen referred to the easement policy that was like a 2008 policy, but that's not a 2008 policy because you just amended it, so that would be included. So, things that were amended to be updated, that easement policy isn't wiped out. It's now current as of this year. So yeah, I think 2014 is a good date to start, so that's a good idea.
Okay, Karen, and then I'll wrap up and I'm sorry, Dan?
I think you said July 1st. I would probably recommend May 1st because that aligns with our fiscal year. It's easier to remember.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Karen?
I do have one concern with an arbitrary date.
Hold on, you're not Karen. Let me let Karen go, and then I'll get to you.
I heard Eric.
Karen?
John, are you comfortable with 2014? That makes me a little nervous. That's why I'm saying that date. I know it goes back for 10 years, but I feel like that's maybe we should go back 15 years just to be on the safe side, because I know that easement policy that we just updated was like a 2008, 2009 thing that we've been living off. That's just how I feel about it. But I will defer to the group.
All right, okay. John would like to say something, and I'll get to you.
Yeah, if I could make a recommendation, I would suggest that the board have the meeting on the policies and let John present the options before they make a decision on what, date, if any, that they want to kind of have as a cutoff. I think he could provide a lot of information to the board to make a more informed decision.
I think that's wise. Eric?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think a date makes much sense. It's just picking a random number out of thin air. I mean, the real key thing is we've got a stack of policies that go back decades. The question is, which of these policies are relevant? And if by relevant, we're following them. If we're obviously not following them, they're probably not relevant. If we haven't been following them for years, they're probably not relevant anymore. So really, the question is, what policies are actually relevant to the organization?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Eric. Last thing I was just going to say, I think what policies we have, their applicability, all those things are important. I think we should also spend some time in the meeting exploring what policies don't we have that we should have. That probably should be a small part of it. And then kind of alluding to what John was saying and others have been saying as far as numbering and archiving, and we should have a management program on how to manage policies moving forward. And that'll take a little bit of time, but we should at least start that discussion at this meeting. So we will find a date and pass that around, give everybody notice on that. Thank you for a good discussion on board policies, everyone. We're now going to move on to questions only portion of our meeting. As far as the president's report, any questions? Questions from Ashley?
Well, I have one comment and then one question. One was actually really for the first part on the CA Points of Pride. I wanted to give kudos to the athletic club team, specifically Ray and Nee, on their swift response time with helping Mr. West, and I wish him a speedy recovery. Like, that was crazy that was just like one small bullet, but like clearly such a critical action on the part of the staff in helping him. And then my question is related to the dredging. I am not an environmentalist, so I'm going to learn more about this. But why do we store sediment? What do we do with it? How long are we paying for storage of it? Like, what is this part of the standard process?
Jeremy can speak to that.
Thanks.
Sure. So are you specifically inquiring about our Murray Hill placement site?
Yes.
Okay, so that was actually a cost-saving measure that was implemented several years ago because it's exceedingly cost prohibitive to transport the sediment to another county, to another jurisdiction for disposal. So this is actually a really shrewd move on the board and the staff's part 8 years ago?
It was like 2017.
Yeah, 2017. Because it has really resulted in significant cost savings for us as a result of subsequent dredging. So it's basically a site where the sediment that's collected, which is really fine, silty type material that's really wet. And so basically the objective of the placement site is to store it and allow it over about 3 years' time to sort of ripen and dewater and essentially become sand. So it's a cost-saving measure for us as an organization, and we're actually going to be running out of space at that location after another dredge, or maybe two. And so we're actually undertaking consulting services right now to start finding another placement site for the ongoing dredging support.
What do we do with it after it's dry?
It stays. Based on our permit requirements, it stays in place, which is why we're going to run out of space.
And one of the things we've discussed with Jeremy is what are our options with the material, and I think that's part of his assessment, along with looking at another location, is also what if any are options for the material that's in place currently. So we'll be looking at that.
All right. Any other questions on the President's Sky?
Yeah, just an update on the incident at the athletic club. Jason Sultan is back in college now, and when I saw that in the report, I talked to his mother, who used to be the village board chair, and she basically knew nothing about it, and that's because Jason is a teenager, and they don't always tell their mothers a lot. But our village is going to figure out a way to honor him.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? I just had one on, and I'm happy to see the what's going on with Lake Kimmacquundy, but what's the schedule for Elkhorn and Wild Lake? When do they look to be dredged next?
So they're currently in our CIP, and so the dredging sequence for our lakes is about 5 to 7 years. And so, it's shifted a little bit, but I think Wild Lake is 2028 or 2027, and then Elkhorn would be 2029, 2030.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is that all the questions for this evening? Very
Can
good.
I just ask a follow-up question to Jeremy?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry, when you guys dredge Lake Elkhorn, you're not going to dredge the whole lake, right? You only have to dredge the forebay.
Well, so there's accumulation that happens throughout the lake. As I mentioned, in many instances, we are constrained by the total amount of sediment we can store in one shot at our Murray Hill placement site, which is about 15 to 18,000 cubic yards of sediment. So we absolutely prioritize the forebays. 2 of our 3 lakes have forebays that are the primary collector of sediment. But we would actually also try to hit some of the hot spots, which are where other stream or tributaries enter the lakes and also deposit sediment. So the forebays are the primary targets for dredging, but then you also hit other accumulation hotspots while you're there.
Right.
Right, so I have a quick question here, and Jeremy, maybe you can't answer tonight, but maybe you can answer it in a future one. But recently, the water level was lowered in Lake Elkhorn, and it would have been pretty easy just to bring in a front loader and clean up those 4 spots. Michael shared pictures with everybody. And I was wondering, did we just not take advantage of that opportunity to quickly clean up that sediment and silt that had built up in those 4 spots to save time and money later? You don't have to answer tonight if you don't have a good answer for me, but I was just curious about that because it seemed like it was a pretty quick fix and CA could have saved a lot of money on that one.
So 2 things. We did not anticipate the dry period, so we fully expected the lake to be up to normal levels and going over the spillway, within days of lowering it to do the maintenance work on the spillway itself. So weather is a factor. 2, there would be a significant permitting process to get anything more than a shovel in that lake, which would take months.
Right, and
Okay,
mobilization twice is more expensive than mobilization once, right?
Yeah.
So, and demob. So, all right, finishing up, proposed new topics. Hey, I think we're good. Okay. Chair's remarks, just good first meeting back. Thank you for everybody. We've got another meeting in 2 weeks. This is a quick one, and we're getting ready as we do. We had at the beginning here. Budget season is upon us. Budget strategy. Everybody start thinking about that. Start getting input from your village boards, village residents. We're going to start the big stuff here soon. So, thanks everybody for a good night. Motion to adjourn.
I moved to adjourn.
Mike, seconded by Karen.
Yep.
Any opposition? Hearing none, we are adjourned.